Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 2 on the Visitor Skyfighter. Now, I am waiting for it to warm up somewhat outside before I can put the clear coat on this. Once the clear coat is on, I can put the black vinyl. Now, I tried using the black panel line accent for these lines. They're just not as even. It's my own fault. They were there. They were sculpted in. I mean, they were printed in. It may have been just too many coats of paint, too many coats, particularly one coat of the filler primer. It filled them in. I tried carving them back out. It's just not, I don't think it's just going to work. I may have to try to paint those back out. The trouble is I've already got so much other stuff painted around them, and I've got these decals on the hatches there, so I don't know. I may try to paint that back out. Problem is finding a white that matches that, because that's in the rattle can, and if I do anything, it's going to have to be to me a flat white. So we're going to see. I wish I had been a little more careful with those when I was sanding and priming, that I didn't fill those in. So it's a nice idea. It was a good experiment. Ultimately not a successful one, but I'm hoping that while we're waiting for the weather to warm up, I can maybe start doing some painting on the figures. I can at least get some gloss black out and do like the boots and the hats, that sort of thing. So we'll paint what we can while we're waiting for the sun to come out. So I'm painting the little visitors. And it is a question of setting up an assembly line and just going through it, because there's so much there's so much detail on them. I mean, they're very excellently printed. There's lots and lots of detail. And what I'm doing basically is I've gone through and I did a boot pass where I painted all the boots, and then I started playing with the belts, and when I did a skin pass. And it's okay if the skin is a little artificial looking, being that these are all masks. The flesh tones are a little bit flat on them. Also trying to touch some of the belts and the hats. I really would like to come up with some sort of red wash that will allow me to, maybe if I find one of these really thin air colors, that I can do a black tinted red wash that will go into the folds and accentuate the creases on the uniforms, and that will carry a long way towards capturing the detail on them. There's a very dark gray that goes on some of the soldiers, and when I see here, look at this guy. Now he's a soldier. He's got a gun and a helmet, but he also has hands sculpted in. He doesn't have gloves sculpted in like the reference that I've got. And then some of these guys, there are no decals. At least I didn't see any. I see plenty of decals for insignia, but not for the stripes on their tunics. So I don't know whether I'm going to draw those in, leave them off, or do something with them. Might have to just do a real fine line with a really fine brush to see if I can do. There may not be any lieutenants, is what I'm saying. There may be a lot of there may be a lot of lieutenants and not a lot of commanders, because the commanders have the 4 and 5 stripes. But yeah, I'm going around here. I'm still waiting for it to warm up a bit before I can spray the clear on that. I really want to get those decals covered in. I found a mix that I think would work. It's like half black, half of this flesh wash from the Army Painter Quick Shade washes. It's a flesh wash which has a red tint to it, and I put a little of the fire red in it. It darkened everything down. I mean, it sits in the creases just lovely, but it kind of made everything a little bit too deep of a red. It's not the color I was shooting for at the beginning, but I'm hoping that I can lightly go over it with a bit of the fire red, maybe on a dry brush, and hopefully bring some of that color, that brightness back up. And I went in and painted the guard here, the guard with the gray colors, and I went over and repainted over his hands and his gauntlets there, seeing as how they should be. That should all be the glove. It just looked like on the illustration that there was no separation between the wrist and the forearm, and here I just painted over top of that, so we don't have to worry about that at all. But these are starting to look nice. Little by little, the detail is coming out in them. And I'm thinking what I'd like to do is maybe take a very fine toothpick or a Q-tip. I've got some of these really fine ones, and just take a little bit of water and maybe go over the high spots, and that'll help bring some of the paint or some of that wash back off of it. That will also help to brighten up the reds. Okay, I have a quandary. I'm starting to dry brush some color over top of the jumpsuits that will bring up the orange and the reds in them, and I like what's happening. I really like the subtleties. Unfortunately, they don't look quite as garish as they should. I would say they look a little bit more realistic. They look a little better than the ones on television. But that's not what I want. I want the bright reddish, orangish suits. So it's a case of overdoing it to make it match what I want to do. These would be very nice, very realistic suits. But that's where I'm stuck, because I think they actually want to be a little brighter and gaudier than this. So I'm going to continue to work and see what kind of color mixture I need to give it the appropriate 80s tackiness. Well, it's Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. And we're getting back to the visitors. I've been having lots of fun painting up these tiny, tiny visitors. Again, I think I should have started with a brighter orange base than I did. They're still kind of red, but I'm digging it. I go back and I look at the reference pictures, and it's like, geez, I wish I could have made those a little bit brighter. But it really would. I think it would, at this point, it would mean going back to plastic, pretty much, just respraying orange over all of these and then redoing everything. And it may be a rabbit hole, but I'm kind of digging where it's going. I got the gold on there. I was hoping that would brighten them up a little bit, and I think it has. Now, I resisted the temptation to making this last one look like Diane. I actually went with a red hair rather than the black hair. By not keying any one of these particular figures into any particular character, it keeps it more anonymous that way. Makes them more generic in a way. And that's why I'm not putting a lot of... I want to say I'm not putting a lot of thought, but I'm not putting a lot of anguish into the rank on them. I want them to be more low-level types. So yesterday, while it was warm for 25 minutes, well, not warm, but not as cold, I went outside with this and sprayed the clear coat on it. I want to go back and hit it again this morning because there were parts of it I didn't get to yesterday, like I didn't get to the bottom. So I'll get to the bottom of it today for sure, and we're going to cut the black vinyl and put that on, and that'll be big and impactful and fun and sexy and yay. So let's do that. Let's do that now. I can go ahead and cut the vinyl, even though if I can't put it on quite yet. I will say that the decals all but disappear. All the carrier film has all but disappeared underneath that clear coat, so that did what it was supposed to. There's a couple of spots of white I need to touch up. They got dinged, but I'll do that maybe before I put the clear coat on the bottom. Okay, so I'm starting to apply some of the black vinyl finally. Yay! And one of the places I thought was neat that could use it are the step treads. I've seen pictures of the full-size prop, and they have like little non-skid black tread spot, just little gritty spots on the steps. And rather than trying to paint those in at this late stage, I thought it would be easier to just make those out of vinyl and then lay them down on the steps. I did something similar to this on the Proteus for the black treads on the top of the hull, and that worked out, especially since you wanted to have, again, that sharp contrast of the black treads on the very, very white hull. And rather than trying to paint those on, it worked better to cut out a piece of vinyl. I think they were decals in the Proteus kit, but you know, then you worry about things silvering and all of that. So having these sorry, I'm putting these down as I am talking to you. Oops, that one went on crooked. Get that one back up. Having these that you can put down at the end. That one's still a little off. The way the model works is a little different than the actual full-size prop. So there you have to work this, you kind of have to step up over the top step and down, whereas okay, stay. There we go. There. So now we've got, how well you can see those with the light shining on them. There, on the treads on the steps there. Okay, so I think today, given what time it has gotten to be, I think if we do the 3 windows up front, that will be a good place to stop. I've also been playing with this piece here, which is meant to emulate the separation between the front and the back sections of the ship. I think that's doing what I would want it to do. Now I'm going to make sure that when I am pulling these off of the sheet that I am not gouging the actual vinyl, because I want that to be clean and not have any marks in it. So this way I can lift up underneath it without poking anything. So carefully, gently. Let's see how we're going to hold this thing. This wants to be not quite there. It wants to be. Oh, and you have to make sure that you are not trapping anything underneath the vinyl and not trapping any dust or schmutz that's gonna show up underneath. I'm just going to try to line it into the front corner and push it down around. There you go. That's looking pretty good. Let's do the front now. And try to keep it as dust free as possible. I think if we Lay this along the bottom edge of the window. Ooh, there we go. Oh, that's bringing it to life. I can tell already just with those two. Now, take a Q-tip and kind of buff that down. And the last one on this side. And then we'll do the many ones that go on the back. We can do that tomorrow. And there you go. Brings it all kinds of life, and you get that nice smooth black shape without having to paint it. Okay. Do I want to continue doing the rest? No, we'll save some of that for tomorrow. I think what I would like to do is perhaps the other or the next bit of stripage. Come on. Which is, well, I don't like that, but we'll make it work. This piece here. Starts there. Now we don't have a door on this, or at least an opening door on this side, so we can, there we go, lay that down nice and flat, and then it wraps around the bottom. And we will cut it off, keeping that parallel to the doorway that's not there. And again, the charm of this comes down to the wonderful contrast between the black, the sharp contrast between the black and the white. And then we'll have one more piece that I can fill in this area. But that gives you the lovely separation. Now that's a little crooked. That's a little crooked, so let's peel that back up and straighten it out. Okay, look at it this way. Wrap it around. There. Okay, lay that down. And then I'll cut a little scrap piece and we'll finish off that line. Good morning, folks. It's Wednesday. I think we're going to get this pretty much wrapped up today, and then we'll figure out how we're going to incorporate the figures into the setup. We have got the vinyl on the front windows. We did that yesterday. That's all looking very good, and we're going to do the back part of this morning. And like I said, then we're going to see how we are going to balance the two competing ideas of, hey, I don't have a lot of room to be displaying this, with how can I incorporate the figures that came with it. Now, I will say I need to check No, I did. I wanted to make sure I remembered correctly that I did spray a clear coat over top of the whole thing after I had touched up the paint. Looks like I have done that. So we are going to start. Let's see, if I do this, what I'd like to do is to remove the surrounding vinyl around these shapes so that I am not poking them to get them off of the vinyl. Let's see, let's do that. And to make sure, oh yes, it's all going to come off. I just need to do some cutting here to remove the stress from it. Well, let me come back and I'll show you the pieces that I've got. Okay, so I've got the extraneous stuff removed and I've got just the window parts left that I want. And I'm going to start laying them in here. Let me get my goggles on. Makes it a little easier. Now, for some reason, I may have to go back and remeasure these because they are coming out a little smaller than they should. I mean, they're fitting in there just fine. But I think I might need to do some readjusting. So I'm going to do all of these, and then I'll do a final critique to see which ones might need to be adjusted. This is the same file as the yellow masks were made from, so if those fit, then these should have fit, but maybe seeing the white, the whites of their eyes, seeing the final white indent is it's a little bit more apparent than it was on the gray primer when I made the yellow ones. Okay, I'm just trying to fit, there you go. Trying to fit that tightly up against the stand there. And you pick a point to start with, and you just work yourself around it. Trying to make sure this is on camera, but realizing that my beanie head might be in the way too. Now, before I stick that down, I need to move it a little bit. Nice thing about vinyl is it does stretch a bit. You can maneuver it. You can pick it up and put it down a couple times, but much beyond that, you don't want to stretch it. And let's see. Do I need, there you go, get that bottom corner. Okay, now take the Q-tip, buff these guys down, and there you go. That is so much better than having to paint and keep those very thin white rails clean. But there you go. Now it's time to do these guys and then the bottoms. Alrighty, I've just spent the last few minutes penciling in some lines with an actual pencil. Some of those lines along the bottom. I also put in a couple of spritzes of flat black just as some scorching on the underside, because that is the side that would get most of the atmospheric scorching, and it just dirties it up a little bit, not too much. I want it to still be fairly pristine, but you know, it takes away some of the perfection of it, takes away some of the it gives it more of a sense of scale, I think, if you put a couple of smudges on it. And it doesn't look quite as artificial. It doesn't look quite as much like a toy. That's where I was going with that. But I've got all of the windows on. I've also finally got the laser put in the back, and I blackened up the end of it, even though the laser probably wouldn't burn around the edge. It just gives it a little bit of the sense of wear on it. But we've got all of those in, and I'm going to come up with some sort of, I hate to use the word diorama because that's the D word and I've been trying to avoid, but I need to do something to make use of those wonderful figures. So let's pull out some gray plastic and see where we can get. Okay, so I brought the figures back out, and I'm starting to put together some ideas for the base. And I'm stealing as much as I can from Keith's beautiful docking bay setup that he had at Telford. And I'm not going to do anything nearly as elaborate as that. I do want to give some sort of indication of two walls back there. I would like to have a second raised area where I can put the upper ranks figures. I want to do sort of just a procession of three figures walking into the I don't know if they're walking in, or I don't know whether they're coming in or coming out yet. If I have them going in, then I lose seeing all the detail on them. But if I have them coming out, they should be coming out in a straight line, almost like they're marching out. And so I'm trying to invent little stories for these characters, because that always helps me figure out what exactly is going on in the scene if I can assign you know, actions to these guys. This guy I really like, but there's no real place to use him. I don't have any equipment that is the right size for him to be kind of leaning over. So unless I scratch build something, there's no real reason for him to be there. I would like to have these two guys working on the same bit of equipment. Now the problem is they don't want to stand up by themselves. I would have to be glued down. So what I need to do is take some of this really, really thin sheet stock and glue them to that. But I would probably need to paint this the same color first. So I think that may be my first task, would be to mix a light gray that is that color, or else mix a gray that I can paint the whole thing that color. That might be an easier way to go. That way I know that they'll match. But so I'm still in the midst of my storytelling. So it's taken some time, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run. Hello everybody, it's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend. And I am working on this hanger. I don't want to make the footprint of this thing too big because, you know. But I do want to dress it up a little bit, and of course I'm stealing very liberally from what Keith has already shown in his wonderful hanger example. Again, I don't want to get that elaborate, but I do want to dress up these walls in somewhat of a manner, and I am trying to, my mind is boggling with possibilities right now, and I'm thinking I want to put some sort of gangway or some sort of gantry out here that maybe I can put a couple more figures up on the second level. I'm going through my stash box and I'm finding all these great bits that I can be using. I've got these ladder pieces for girder work. I've got some tubes. I can make pipes out of those. I've got some thick rectangle stock that I can use. So I'm just kind of seeing how everything is going to lay out and where they want to be. I've got some screen material if I wanted to make a an open gridded gangplank. So I'm trying to make sure that it's stylistically consistent with what the show did. I don't want to make it look like a Galactica hangar or a Federation hangar. I don't want it to be out of place. And I also want to think of, making it a fairly simple 80s type of decor. It should be in the Larson Galactica Buck Rogers kind of era, because same production people. Now I don't know if it was the same designer, but Ken Johnson production. So, and I'm also thinking how I'm going to. These guys stand on their own, but a lot of the other guys don't. These two walking figures don't have enough foot presence on the ground to stand by themselves, so I'm going to have to glue them down to a piece of thin sheet stock and then glue that wider piece to the floor. Sort of like how you do your action figures that won't stand up. And I'd like to use maybe this prop somewhere in here, but without the I don't want to light it. I don't want to light this one because it would draw too much attention away from the actual action, and that's not what the display is all about. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm playing with shapes and sizes right now. I do like the proportions of my back wall, and that's about all I've got. So I'll report back as I get further into this maddening process. Okay, I think I'm happy with where I'm at, with the exception of obviously painting the walls, but I think I've got enough decor on the walls. Again, I don't want to turn this into a exercise in building out the mothership here. I think the only thing left to do will be to put a railing up, just some sort of mesh railing, or maybe use some of this ladder as a railing. But I think that's about the only thing left to do. And then paint some markings on the floor and some markings on the wall. But I don't want, like I said, I don't want to get into making this a huge build-up of the hangar bay. I think we've got the geometry that I want, or the geography that I want. So let's strip everything down, put that railing up, and then we can get a base coat of paint on the walls. Ho there, everybody. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's the last work day on this V Skyfighter quasi diorama. I've got some basic paint colors on the hangar bay, and I've just darkened this area right here. This is still kind of wet, so I don't want to put the shuttle down in the middle of it. But or the Skyfighter. I keep calling it a shuttle. It's got guns. It's a Skyfighter. For heaven's sakes, it's a Skyfighter. But this goes something like that when it sits down. I'm going to put a high gloss on the floor, or at least a satin. But I think I want to paint a number on it first. And of course it'll be in visitor script, but I think that's what I want to do to accentuate the maybe the parking space number where this would be. Just something to dress up the walls. Now I'm going to cut that stencil out in vinyl, but I want this to dry first. I think it'll be white here, and then maybe, well, it could be in white on both of the walls as well. That would give me good. That would give me another. I've got a black railing. If I can see where it is, it's right here. I've got a black railing to go here that needs to be glued down. And then if I put white numbers on it, I think that'll give me my monochromatic look that I'm shooting for. And then that'll make the visitors pop out against it. That's kind of the color theory if you want to get fancy with it. So let me cut that vinyl while that is drying, and we'll progress on with it. We'll start gluing some stuff down. I had thought about adding some color in here, maybe making, control panel or a button or something. I don't know about it. I just don't know at what point it's too much. So I think I'd rather it be kind of fading into the background and let the action and the shuttle really take the attention of what's going on, the fighter. Take the attention of what's going on and not call too much attention to the back walls. Here we go. This is what my floor looks like now with the landing patch and the number on it. I won't tell you what that says. If you have that alphabet on your computer, you can figure it out. I also broke bad. I did something I know is incorrect, but I like it anyway. And that is, I went through the figures and I silvered their belt buckles. I know they're supposed to be red with the logo on them, but the silver looks a little bit better, I think. And I also went through and I put the tiny decals down for the logos on the chest and on the armband. On the officers, it looks really good because it shows up really nicely against that gold. I was surprised how well it showed up against the red. But the officers get it on their right chest, and the regular enlisted guys, I guess, get it on their left chest. But they don't show up so well against the red jumpsuit. The logos do show up pretty well against the hats, which again surprised me, since the decals were not backed in white. That they would even show up at all against the black is amazing. So I'm just going through and I'm putting the last touches. I think this guy is the commander here. He's the most finished. I like how that armband decal looks. I'm going to go around one last time with the tiniest of brushes, and I'm going to do a red pass and then a black pass to clean up any loose stuff. But I'm ready here to pull the vinyl off of the painting for this part of the bay. Let's just see how this goes. Hopefully it will not pull up any gray paint underneath it. I have not given these the traditional amount of, or the customary amount of time to dry before I put vinyl down on it, and so I am being very cautious about not getting any paint lift up. Oh, that's pretty good so far. Yeah, I like that. I can live with that all day and all night. That's the back wall, and it matches the what's on the floor. This is just another symbol over here. Let's get this in camera. Ooh, that came off very nice and clean. And there's one little inside here I need to pull out. Yeah. Very nice. Okay, so now I need to clean off a space here so we can get a picture of what the whole thing looks like. There's the floor. Careful. There's the walls around it. Very nice. And I've got this railing I need to glue up here. And then I'll be ready for the little folk. I'll be ready to put the people down. Actually, I think the railing goes this way. Yeah, I just have to glue that railing down. I was right the first time. It went this way. Glue that railing down. And then the people behind it. And then we'll be, first thing I need to do before I glue the back two walls onto the floor is I want to give the floor a satin coat so that it has not quite that high gloss reflective coat, but it needs to have a satin coat, and I have to be very careful because this area where the kids are coming out of the bus, that has to match that. So I might have to put some satin spray or do something around their feet so that it doesn't look out of place when it does that. So that's going to be tricky. We're going to see how much of a gloss we get on that to begin with. Okay, this has the potential to be both tricky and messy, but it's time to glue the walls onto the floor. Now the floor's got a nice satin coat on it, and it's giving me the right amount of shine without being too glossy. And what I need to do is basically stick some glue along this bottom edge here and get it ready to wrap around the back. Now I have put some pieces of tape on the bottom that I could pull up and attach to the back wall to kind of pull everything in place while it's drying, but and nothing to it but to put some glue on it and hope for the best. Okay, so we're putting together some final construction now. We're getting ready to glue the figures down, and I have to make an apology to Keith. These decals are backed in white. I noticed it when I had to replace one, and I flipped it over and I saw that it is in fact there is in fact a white layer behind that, which means now I understand why it looks so good against the black. Doesn't stand out much against the red. I guess if I had painted the jumpsuits a more orange color, they might stand out a little better, but such as is what it is. So I'm going to let these guys dry a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pop any sort of clear coat over the decals. That might be tough because they're so small. I don't want to spritz the whole figure with a flat coat. I might put a drop of this guy. I might put a drop of the matte varnish over top of each of the decals just to seal them in place, but I think that's going to be the extent of it. Things are starting to look good here by the way that I got them laid out, so I'm just figuring out final configurations of the figures. I don't know whether I want to do anything up in here. That wall here is kind of blah, but I don't know if I want to add anything to it at this late stage. I think we just might have to live with it the way it is. Alrighty, I think I'm willing to call this thing done. I had to find something for the other two guys to work with, so I gave them a bit of hose coming out of that access. Because of the way they're posed, there's not much else you can do with them. The guy kneeling, I call him Neil, and the guy called Crouch, I call him Barney. They are working on gathering up some hose, some pipe. And that's the only thing I could think to do with them. I didn't have any of the props that were the right height to work with that, so I just gave them a little bit of hosage to work with. And here we have our two. Are these actual visitors, or are they resistance fighters in disguise? We don't know, but one of them is being guarded, and the other one here is instructing them which way to walk. Now, these guys are on a separate base, which means I could turn them around and have them walking in to the fighter if I wanted to. And then this guy back here, he's also on a separate base, so I could move him around as well. I just like him walking out from the back of the ship. And then we have our three upper ranks supervising from the catwalk. But that is the V Skyfighter from, this is the 32nd scale from Cosmic Scale Models. And of course, Hanger by Lou. And that, my friends, is the build of the Visitor Skyfighter from Cosmic Scale Models. A special shout out to a man named Simon Brett. Simon is a gentleman who tracked me down at Telford when I was there back in November. Simon took a box from Keith and put it in my hands and said, "Lou, please build this on your channel." And Simon, I'm more than happy to have done it. It was a great build and a great little kit. It is quite fun. And now that it's done, we can move on to the next kit. Now the weather has taken a turn for the better. It is 75 degrees out here, the last days of January. 75 degrees. What's wrong? So I might just get some resin cleaned this weekend. If I can get some of the resin parts cleaned up from the kit that I'm wanting to build, because I got to do it outside. It's just dusty, and I don't want to do that inside. If I can do that this weekend, we might be pushing up a build that I was going to wait till later in spring to do. We might just start that next week. So tune in next week and find out what it is we're building. Until then, y'all be safe, be smart, take care of yourself, be good to each other. And I know that's a lot of homework, but you know, it should be second nature by now. And be back next week and we'll find out what's on the bench.